It's probably been a good couple of months since we've been live. This is a new format we're trying out, trying to do something live directly on YouTube. But Mark, how have you been? It's been a while.
Good, man. It's been a while since I've seen you in person, anyway. But yeah, I mean, luckily we get to chat on the phone. We probably once a week at least.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, no, it's interesting to see how things have changed. Hey, I think last time we did a podcast, I was still living in Philly. Now, actually, last week was my 1 year anniversary of being in Miami. So there's that.
Oh wow, that flew
It's
by.
it's been a year. It's been a year. But all right, Mark, let's get right into it. I think the hot topic right now is what happened at Pocono. Man, and look, there's John saying howdy. What's up, John? Anyway, so let's look at Pocono, right? I mean, first of all, that's my home track. They took one race away from us, just like they took one race away from you over
They
at
they
Dover.
they did. It's
Um,
annoying.
it is. It's very annoying. But let's be honest. Pocono's never been that of an exciting track. It's never been sold out. But this week, it was everything but, man. It was sold out. Grandstand was packed. Their new paddock was legit. And there was some actual racing on the track, man. Do you remember something like that in recent memory?
Not not in recent memory, but it does seem like that they've really made the racing is far wider than I've ever seen there. So
No, for sure. I mean, actually having people compete. I mean, it's still a single file track. Unfortunately, they put Risen on the track, but there's only so much that can do. But it's we've gotten some controversy, we've gotten some action, we've gotten a little bit of everything, man. We got helmets flying, people cursing at the tow truck driver. I mean, people saying that they hit, and other people saying that they didn't hit. So let's get into it. Let's talk about first the helmet thing, because if we go in chronological order, I think that's the first thing that happened.
all right, yeah,
Um,
no, I agree. I agree.
so as you may know, I am no fan of Austin Dillon. Um, but man, I mean, I don't think I've seen a helmet throw since I saw Tony Stewart do it back in, was it Bristol or Martinsville, maybe
Yeah.
Richmond. I can't remember if anyone else throwing the helmet as of recently, but man, this guy throws the helmet just how he races. Did I say that out loud?
So what's hilarious, I'm like, and I'll just mention this really quick and then we can move on.
Yeah.
But is NASCAR and Instagram put out a caption with that video, which it's a baseball term, so you might not know it too well, and the term is just a bit outside. I mean, look, if you're gonna make the throw, don't botch the throw. You know,
Dude,
throw
at
it.
least hit the car.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can't get mad at something that, to me, I mean, he was just in that situation. I don't really think I don't think Tyler Reddick had he's was not trying to intentionally wreck
He
him.
didn't do anything wrong.
No, and I don't understand what the anger is. I mean, I get it. Austin Dillon's having a frustrating season and certainly a frustrating Cup career. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean,
I was going to say that's no different than any other season.
he's won a couple of races. I mean, he's got the 500. I mean, that's great. I mean, good on you. I mean, but the performance is just not there. He's a top 20 car. I mean, if he makes it in the top 20, sometimes he's 25th. Like I get it. I'd like to see him do better. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's really quite there. I mean, obviously he's in
If
good
he's cut
equipment.
material,
Yeah, I don't know. That's a question for somebody else for me.
well,
But
I mean, let's look at it, right? When Tyler was driving Kyle's car last year, I think he won a race and he was finishing up in the top 10. Austin
mhm,
was not. When Kyle got into the car, I did not think that Kyle was going to win a race this year. I didn't think the equipment matched his talent. Of course, Kyle has proved us all wrong. He's
yeah,
already won.
that was where our opinions differed at the beginning of the
Yeah,
season.
no,
I thought the ECR engines were just going to be very strong, and I thought that really what they were lacking at RCR was a driver, not necessarily that their cars were bad. I never thought the cars were bad. They would show speed with Tyler Reddick. So when Kyle Busch came over, I was like, there will be wins, and there will be several. And he's got, I think, 3 for the year,
yep.
he's consistently won in first place or second place,
Right.
and top five for sure. So I
And
mean,
and
he
this
has the
isn't one of
speed.
these it's not one of those situations where people can say, "Oh, they're giving Kyle the better car,"
Right.
because I mean, Austin's part of the family over there at RCR, so I doubt that they would give him lesser equipment. If anything, they'd
Sure.
probably give the other guy lesser equipment. So, but it comes to a point where you can see the actual raw talent of Kyle, and then Austin, whatever he's doing. But I don't know how long his contract is, but it's one of those things. If one guy's performing and one's not, if we're going through, what would happen in any other team, I think Austin would be kind of on the line to get cut. But I don't know if you can cut family, right? Is Grandpa actually going to cut him? I don't think so.
I don't think so, and I think Austin's kind of in line to try and take that company over at some point. If that's the way things go, obviously he's not going to want to get cut for a long time. He's going to want to do something, but I also think that Austin has got to kind of start to get into a role of if he's not going to perform. You remember Richard wasn't performing like very well either. You know, he could drive, but I mean, at the end of the day, when he became car owner, that's when Dale Earnhardt came around, and that's when he started doing really well for
Right.
himself. And Austin Dillon might be that same position where you kind of get moved into an owner role and you really excel, and that maybe that's where your niche is, and not necessarily the
Dude,
driving, unfortunately.
and you're right. And if you want to talk modern day, that's exactly what happened with Justin Marks, man. When he was in the Xfinity series, he absolutely, well, I'm not going to curse, but wasn't a good driver. At
Sure.
least wasn't in the top 20, I don't think. And he used to, I remember he used to crash his car frequently. Now that
Mm,
he's in an owner role, he's got guys winning races for him. And so, yeah, you're right. Some people can drive, some people can be an owner, some people can manage. So
yeah.
everyone's kind of holding their own. But yeah, I mean, throwing a helmet nowadays, yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting, but I mean, come on. And there's a lot
I'm
of kids watching too. I mean, your son races now, and
sure.
I'm not going to say that Austin Dillon's a role model, but when Noah or someone of his age sees that on TV, maybe he thinks it's acceptable to do when they're racing. So, not the
Sure.
best of looks.
Yeah. I'm not really for the helmet throw. I think that if it was a more pronounced something happened, show some retaliation, have a conversation on pit road, maybe a little pushing and shoving. That don't really bother me too much. But the helmet throw, well, you missed first of all. Uh, but like it didn't make
Well,
sense. It
there was a
and
lot of math to go there, man. He had to time it. He had to think of the angle, the banking, the speed.
I
Too much
mean,
things to do in like
yeah,
half a split second.
it's baseball.
It's funny. Junior was saying on his podcast, they asked him like, "What if one of your drivers threw a helmet?" And he's like, "Well, those helmets are like $5,000. So if they want to go buy a
Yeah,
new one, go ahead."
them Steelo Zeros are. They're more than that. They're eight. They're 8, 9. I mean, he probably gets a discount of some sort
Oh,
for
for sure.
buying in bulk. We'll say, but they are expensive. I mean, I have the Carbon, and that was $2,000, and it's just like
Yeah.
I already cringed at that.
So, quick question, and we can move on to the next subject. Should there be a penalty, a fine, or anything associated with what he did?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the penalty was kind of, you know, botched it, and he didn't look really good on TV, to be honest. But no offense, Austin Dillon. I like your passion. I just don't. I didn't agree with the throw.
I agree. I agree with you. I don't think it was penalty worthy. And you're right. He made a fool of himself that day. And I get it. Sometimes
Yeah.
drivers lose their temper, but
Well,
probably
I
not the
mean that's
right
the
way.
thing. Emotions are high, so
Emotions are very high in a race, especially where he's not in the chase. Well, playoffs now. I gotta stop saying chase. In
yeah.
the playoffs now, but it is what it is. But as far as hotheads, let's talk. Did you see the incident with Joey Logano and the tow truck driver?
That was hysterical funny, by the way. I watched that and I saw the replay on Instagram and they were bleeping everything out and I was like, stop bleeping it out. I want to hear what's going on. And I found the unedited video and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
that's incredible.
So the interesting thing about that was apparently he wasn't holding his comm buttons down, so he wasn't talking to his crew chief. He was just talking to himself. But it's
Correct.
it's the camera's actual microphone that picked it up, which was even funnier. Um, but so Joey, in a post race interview, actually, said, "Oh, NASCAR should hire like a pit crew to go along with the tow truck driver, and so they can change all four tires, and the driver can go back to pit road." And a lot of people were just,
Oh,
"This messed up."
I feel like I lost you there for a second.
I'm here, but I don't know what happened to my video.
I don't know either.
All right, I guess we'll go without video. But anyways,
Sure.
Um, so I think Joey's biggest gripe is that when these cars get dragged, the way that they get dragged, it destroys the underbody. And once your diffuser, because a lot of these cars are producing downforce with the underbody diffuser, it ruins a car, it ruins your day. So he was trying to get people out there. Joey actually did say, if AAA can come and change four tires for people out on the road, why can't the tow truck and NASCAR do that for us? Which I also
Sure.
thought was hilarious.
Well,
But
I don't think that that's. I mean, obviously, sure. If you want to do it that way, you can go several laps down. Then fine, sure. Why not? I don't think that anyone wants to see that. To be honest, what they should have done for that car was got a flatbed out there, took them to pit road. There's got to be a way for them to get a flatbed out there that's got an angle sharp enough that it doesn't destroy anything with the diffuser.
yeah,
And obviously, you don't have to sit there and listen to somebody cussing the whole time because the tow truck driver has no clue what they're doing. Because I mean, not saying that they don't have a clue what they're doing, but it was like, man, you guys are destroying that car on the way to pit road. I mean, I don't know. There's a better way. And I'm sure they're looking at that.
well, Denny said on his Actions Detrimental podcast that they should look into doing something of like what they do with Formula One cars, where they can just hoist the entire car and drop it off at pit lane. But then, of course, it's like our cars are so much heavier, so like it would entail getting more equipment, and paying more, I guess you could say, for that. So,
Yeah,
who knows?
I'm not sure. That's for engineer that makes more money than I do. So
Yeah, yeah. So, Mark, let's talk about the big main event piece here between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. What were your thoughts when you saw the incident? I'm sure you've gotten to see a couple replays. What are your thoughts?
I've seen several replays, and I don't know. My opinion varies from angle to angle and conversation to conversation, right? So, it my initial opinion, and I'm going to say this is, wow, that was messed up. Like, did he seriously get run up into the wall? Like what really happened? And then
Hmm.
you look at like five or six different replays, and NASCAR's been pretty good about getting all their social media stuff put in. Multiple views, multiple conversations, and you kind of watch the two of them get through the turn. Now, Denny says, "I left you a lane." Right? He had a lane. Right? Um, I agree with that to a point. Um, he does start to kind of slide up the track there at the end, and Kyle Larson at that point, where there is a lane. I mean, if he really wanted to squeeze between, he would have to lift to get through that lane and make it work. But it's just like he said, he didn't touch him. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, he didn't touch him. I didn't see contact. I don't know if you saw contact or not. Uh,
I
I
can't tell, but if there was no contact, it was literally as thin of a slice of paper.
Sure. I don't know like how close they were, and I would love to like kind of deep dive a little further into the replay and say for sure. But um, when I'm looking at the replay, to me, there's space between the cars, and there's space enough for him to make it through. The problem is he's running so fast, and he's also running up in kind of like the debris up at the top of the
The
track.
marbles.
Yeah, that like did you just lose it there and were you coming off throttle? Like, I don't know. It's so hard to say. Um,
Right.
so really, is Denny correct in what he's saying? maybe a little bit. Like I said, he does run up the track. He doesn't leave much of a lane. Um, it's that's a hard question. There's so much involved.
So I agree with what you're saying, but I'll add a couple things.
Sure,
You know, one, the reason they can't make that turn, well, let's be honest, the tunnel turn, no one's ever gone too wide through there and survived. It's
for
part of
sure.
what happens at Pocono. It's real bumpy. You're going fast because you're going off of turn one that has that huge banking, and then the tunnel turn has little to no banking. So you don't have the advantage of going to be able to go sideways full throttle without lifting. Because even the guy who's in the inside is going to have to lift because they're coming with momentum. Someone's probably bump drafting them. So they're going to have to lift to make that turn. Now, here's where the controversy is, right? Um, as a race car driver, it's not your decision to make sure that the guy to your right and to your left feels good,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
there's a certain part of being the gentleman driver and good sportsmanship and all that good stuff. But guess what? Every single NASCAR race you turn on, right? What did they say at the very beginning? Oh, look, they gave each other room, but come 10 laps ago, that goes all out the window. Well, guess what? We were less than 10 laps ago, all that goes out the window. So I actually don't think that Denny did anything wrong. And you may call me a Denny Liker. And for anyone watching out there, Denny Hamlin became my number one driver after Jimmy retired, then followed by Ross Chastain, who's my number two driver. So when Denny goes out there and does squeeze him, no doubt about that. But he's right in saying that Larson has the ability to either lift or gas. And of course, if he lifts, he's probably not going to win that race. And if he goes, well, guess what? You're going to get crowded and you're in the marbles and you may lose your position. But this is no different. This is how I look at it. You know, a lot of our tracks do not allow drivers to go two or three wide. The ones that do, even with the banking, you'll see people going into three wide and you'll see always someone back off because it's not necessarily the best idea to go three wide. Or you may
Sure.
go in three wide and you may come out one guy because two wrecked each other. So this happens in ovals with banking. So this is no difference just because there's no banking there. Um, so was there a touch? I don't know. I don't think there was. I think there was like I said, paper thin margin between those. But I think there's one fault with NASCAR because I've seen every single replay, even the replay that they showed from Kevin Harvick's car. And the reality is that there's really no clear back angle to that. Most of the stuff that we see is from the front. And once you get to a certain angle, you really can't tell if they're touching or not. And even through Kevin's camera, you can see that they're close, but you can't tell. So I think next year Pocono needs to put a camera back there because we know that some action is going to happen back there um, to go for it. Now, um, again, diehard Denny fan. I've listened to every one of his podcasts, and I remember in earlier episodes he would always complain about Kyle Larson doing this to other people at the track. And I think if memory serves me right, it's episode two or three from his podcast, very first episodes. He would say one of the key features for Kyle Larson to race and be so good is that he always puts drivers in a situation where they have to lift or not and decide. And ironically, that's what he kind of did to Kyle.
It's
But
all it's all strategy. I mean,
it it is all strategy. But I think the deeper part of this is that they're friends outside of the
yeah,
track. And so it's, I guess the work life balance about that. And how does that work? Up until Monday, when Denny put out his podcast, they had still not spoken. So,
wow.
they asked Denny, like, would you give him a call? Would you see him in person? Then he said, well, I'll see him in person. But he's like, I did nothing wrong. And so I don't know how that's going to rub Kyle because Kyle was, livid. Not to mention, and here's a question for you. Once this incident happened, under caution, Kyle came over and slammed them at the start finish line against the wall.
Sure, sure.
Should he be gotten punished for that? It's under caution. You're hitting another car under caution, not to mention it's technically the leader. I mean,
Well, here's the other thing too: is had the race already been called at that point? So if the race is already called, I don't really see the need for
It
them
wasn't
to.
called at that point yet.
I don't really see the need to like. Obviously, there's a dispute. Like, just kind of like I don't know, let it kind of do its thing, roll out, whatever.
Hmm.
But if you are, in my opinion, if the race is still ongoing and they haven't called anything yet, like I don't know, there and it's a gray area too because they basically said like as soon as the yellow came out or whatever, they're like, "That's it, the race is over." Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Wait, we're finishing under yellow." So when the let me back up a little bit here first. First of all, is I always thought it was green, white, checkered, no matter what, unless they came to a certain spot on the backstretch for the after the white flag had been taken. So
Yes.
that's gone, right?
No, no.
They're not
The
doing that.
white flag was taken though.
So, but the white flag was taken, but it used to be white flag plus a line. That's gone. But the
Oh, you're right. They did used to do the
so
white flag
they
plus
used
the
to
line, the middle line in the
there was
back.
there was
You're
a
right.
there was a cutoff line back in the backstretch, but that,
I think that's
that's
gone.
I think that's gone too. But so I was pissed to see a race end under caution, and I never want to see a race end under caution. But that that's fine. Um, what was I getting into? There was a point I wanted to make. Um, so if I thought that the race was done, um, or they were going to go green, white, checkered, and I heard all the boos, and I hadn't seen the contact or no contact or whatever with Denny and Kyle. So I thought that all the fans when they were booing and they were booing hard, man. I,
You could
that's
hear it through the TV.
that was crazy how loud everybody was, and they made it known they were pissed. But like I thought they were booing because they ended the race under yellow with Denny in the lead, and I was like, and they
That's
just
what Dale
basically
Jarrett said on the TV.
right. Well, they just basically gave him a win, and I was just like, wait, so we're not racing for wins anymore? We're just gonna give him a win under yellow? Like that sucks. And I know that, like in the past years, that's the way that it was. You race 500 laps or 500 miles, and that's it. If it ends under yellow, it ends under yellow. But um, obviously, we had gotten away from that for so long now that it's just nice to see. They'll green, white, checkered until everybody runs out of gas.
I love
Um,
that part of NASCAR right now.
I I do
I
too.
can't tell you. I can't tell you how many times I watch a Formula One race and it ends under, well, they call it the safety car, or you're watching IndyCar and it ends under caution. Dude, that is such a turn off. Like, that's
It's
like, I just spent 2 hours of my life sitting here, to watch a good finish, and you guys are going to end it under a caution, which is why
yes,
I love the way NASCAR does it. Now, of course, there's the traditionalists that hate that, but no, you're
sure,
right.
sure,
Every race
and
needs to end under green flag conditions, no matter
I
what.
agree. I want to see them boys rubbing doors and racing to the checkered. Not hey, we threw the yellow. Where'd you finish? Well, where I was when the yellow lights started flashing on the side of the track. That's where I finished. That's boring. Why
we
did I
might
waste my
as
Why
we
did I
might as well
waste my
throw
day?
dice out there and see who gets
Yeah,
what position.
that
But yeah,
sucks.
so but let me ask you this. So this is, and again, I'm going off of Denny's podcast because coincidentally, I always like listening to his takes on what happens during the race. He's actually in the race, and I think it's the coolest thing that as a participant, he can tell us what his point of view is. But even more so when he's like the one in the action. So the question lies is, why is Denny getting so much hate? And I'm not talking about the boos after the race. If you like him, if you don't like him, okay, that's fine. But he got booed all the way from like when they were in Kansas when Carl Edwards show up over there, and now at driver intros he gets booed everywhere. And like so, Denny's situation here at Pocono, he was like, all right, like I get the booze after the race. You don't like me. That's okay. But they were booing me before the race started. I haven't even done anything yet. Why is he getting booed, Mark? Tell me. Because
I
I like him. You know that I why I like him. We've had conversations, but why is the
yeah.
general person booing him?
So and I've made comments on NASCAR's pages and stuff about it too, because they'll post him and be like in the booze and all this, and I'm like, well, I mean, did you hear what Denny had to say? I mean, he's kind of arrogant. I mean, what I have said. to people, and they're like, it's hilarious. Is Denny is in his villain era right now. I mean, he's just, he's gonna poke and prod and see where that gets him. I think that's where that's going. So I'm sure he welcomes the booze, and he's ready for it. He's just, hey, yeah, boo the crap out of me, whatever. He doesn't care. He's a villain.
He doesn't care. No, it's
But
funny enough. One of the things that Kyle Larson said at the end of the race was, "That's okay. Denny's always right." So
it's
Denny
true.
actually Denny actually made a T-shirt that says, "I'm always right." I was like,
That's hilarious.
"Yes,
That's hysterical
yes."
funny. Like I said, he's in his villain era, and honestly, the sport needs something like that. You need somebody that you can just, can't stand that guy. You know what I
But
mean?
that's okay. So we've talked about 60 seconds about this, but you still haven't told me why. Why can't people stand him?
Because he's arrogant, because he's always right. He
But
Mr.
but okay,
Always right.
give me one situation, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like honestly, give me one situation outside of this Pocono situation where he's done something for people to be like, oh my god, like because when
That's
Kyle used to get booed, he did shit all the time.
right. Well, in my opinion, it's just the way people are right now. They're just tired of seeing him win. They're tired of seeing him do good. He can be kind of arrogant and stuff over the thing, but sometimes it's hilarious. The Joey Logano stuff was hysterical funny, where he's going short track racing.
Yeah,
That had me dying for months. It was hilarious, and Denny was right. I mean, I don't know. You can't fault the guy, but again, this is just like you want somebody to root for. You want somebody to do good. You also want somebody that you can't stand. If you don't have the good with the bad, it's just like, oh, I'm just watching a race and I hope my guy wins. It was like, oh, I'm watching the race and oh man, this guy I can't stand him. I hope and he's crashing into people. Like, what's going on? There's drama. Like you need that.
I get it. I
Mhm.
guess I can understand it. I mean, for me, I like him because of the business side of things, the corporate side of things, that what he's doing. But I could see it from other people. I mean, if we remember, Jimmy used to get booed now towards the end of his tenure too, and that's because all he
Sure.
did was win, 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 no matter what.
Listen,
Um,
man. I'm gonna tell you something. Like I like you want to talk about a villain era. Jeff Gordon probably never did anything wrong, but I was a Dale Earnhardt guy, and I was not gonna cheer for Jeff Gordon. He was my villain, but Dale was probably more of a villain. Like let's if we're just be honest. I mean,
yeah, I mean, but and here's what we always say, and I hear some of the broadcasters say it sometimes. It's like today we look at Dale Earnhardt and we're like, oh, he was the intimidator, this and that. But the man used to get booed too, man. Let's not
for
forget
sure.
that. The man used to get booed, although they NASCAR's try to kind of erase that part of history and think that he was always the man. But yeah, I guess we all go through these ups and downs and stuff. But I'll tell you something else, man. And we talked about this a while ago. Is like, dude, the era where we had Jimmy and Jeff and Casey Kane and Greg Biffle and cousin Carl, like we don't have that right now. Like we don't have like the number one guy because even Kyle, even though I love the boo Kyle and I love the every time he gave the finger to an official or did something, like he doesn't do that anymore either. So it's like now we don't
Yeah.
have the personalities out there, and then he seems to be the personality, but now he gets punished for it.
So what's hilarious is, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. touched on this on his show, is when Carl Edwards came out and they were booing the crap out of everybody, and then they cheered for Kyle Busch, and he's like, "Oh, what is that?" And he's like, "Oh, Kyle moved to RCR. He drives for Chevy now, and all is forgiven."
People love him. All is forgiven. All is forgiven.
Mm,
But all right, man. Let's talk about one last thing here.
sure.
Try to keep it short. Go back to a couple weeks because I think this is a discussion that you and I didn't have, and I really want to have it. So a
Okay.
couple weeks ago, we had the Chicago Street Course. We had
Okay.
this Australian dude come from the New Zealander really, who races in Australia in the V8 Supercar Series. Comes down, does his first Cup race, and whips all the Cup boys and wins his first NASCAR race just like that. Give
On
me
the
some
wrong side of the
thoughts
car.
on the wrong side of the car, on the wrong side of the shifter. He's never been to well, he's been to America because he's done a couple Daytona 24s, but he's never had a Cup car start. He's never did anything, and he beat our good old boys. Um, what are your thoughts on this? Because I almost felt a little ashamed.
I
But tell me what
am
you think.
I'm good with it. I mean, seriously, like you, that is only going to drive some of these guys a little bit. Like they're going to be looking at that like, "Oh, wow, okay, so literally a guy who has no experience in our sport, a guy who has, you know, he's just here kind of on a one-off deal, which is now more than one-off deal. He's actually coming
Yep,
back. I heard um,
yep.
for what Circuit of the Americas or something.
Indy.
Indy. Okay, so it's like, whoa, okay, well, he came in one-off event and he showed everybody like, I mean, that's raw talent. I mean, could you imagine we get some Formula One guys in doing the same thing? I
Well,
mean,
we had it. We had Juan Pablo, and he only won a handful of road courses, but he wasn't that good off the gate. He never won
no,
an oval. Kimmy's come in, Jensen's come in now,
Kimmy's come
so
in
we've
with the
had a
same team,
couple.
with the same
Yeah,
team, right? Yeah, yeah. So I think that that opens up opportunities for other drivers to come in and maybe like the Cup drivers are thinking in the back of their head, well, like, maybe we need to step our game up on some of this stuff, or maybe we need to look at supercars. Maybe maybe they need to start looking into other genres of racing to maybe like work on their game a little bit. So
so yeah, let me give you my opinion on this. And
sure.
I was actually anytime an international superstar from another motorsport comes to NASCAR, I'm hell of excited. I'm like, I want to be able to prove to the world that NASCAR is not, and some people around the world think it's a joke. So it's not the joke that they just turn left and this and that. So I'm excited. But in the back of my mind, I'm also of the idea that, yeah, let them come here, but I want them to struggle. And I want them to struggle really hard so that they can go back to Australia or England or wherever they're coming from and tell them like, hey, this stuff isn't easy as,
Yeah.
just making little left turns. So I want them to come, but in the back of my mind, I do want them to struggle. Now, when they come in and start putting times on the board, because even Jensen Button was putting some good times on the board during practice and stuff like that, I got a little nervous. As a matter of fact, Jensen almost no, Shane Van Ginsburg, he almost had the pole, and like it was a last second ditch effort by Denny that Denny ended up getting a pole. I actually tweeted at him. I'm like, Denny saves America because I'm like, dude, we can't have a foreigner come in and win the
I
pole.
I actually remembered seeing that. I remember seeing your tweet about that. So
Yeah, I'm sure Denny was like, "What the hell?"
he's like, "What are you talking about?"
But yeah, so I saw it like that because there is a little bit of American pride. It's an American stock car, V8, American stuff in America. So let's deal with this. But the fact that he came in and beat everyone, it almost seems like he actually said in his post race interview, and he wasn't trying to be malicious in his statement, but he basically said that anyone in the top 10 in the supercar series could come here and do what he did,
Oh wow.
basically saying that they could all whip our ass. But when he said it, he didn't mean it in a bad way, but you can interpret it a whole different kind of ways. But
I mean, yeah.
that's what they do. And so I didn't like the fact that he beat us at our first race because now they're getting coverage over there, and it's like, oh, this guy comes and whips all the NASCAR boys, and they all suck, and this and that. So I didn't necessarily like it, but like you said, now it gave us more exposure to the world, more coverage, all that good stuff. But now he's coming back. But here's the interesting thing, right? I think that in this race, because it was a street course and because it was in the rain, I think our guys didn't push as much. In fact, when they tried to push, Denny was in the wall or in the tires. Kyle was in the tires. Noah Gregson couldn't find where Wendy's was, even if you gave him a map, because he was in the same. He literally hit the same stack of tires like 4 times. Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
But um, now we're in an age where Shane's coming back, and I don't think our guys are going to take it easy. I think our guys are now going to be like, "Hey, buddy, we're going to put the bumper to you, and guess what? This is our sport." But this is interesting, Mark, and I don't know if you know this, but at Indy, we're going to have four international guys. So we're going to have Shane come back. We're going to have a guy who's in the top 10 in points in supercars driving the 33 for RCR. Um,
Yes.
so that's another guy. Jensen Button's coming again. And now we have Kyobi Kobayashi, who I don't know if you know who that is, but he's like
I don't.
he drives for Toyota in the WEC Championship. You know those Toyota hybrid cars, big like
Yes.
prototypes. He drives those cars when he's here. He also drives. He was actually teammates with Jimmy when they were doing the Cadillac thing for the races that Jimmy did in IMSA. So he's like a well-known road course driver, and he's going to be driving for 2311. So we're going to have four international guys, top-level international guys at this race. But let me ask you this question: do you remember what turn one at Indy's like? Remember when Ross Chastain took the what do you call the extra path and came outside the other way? Dude, that
Yes.
turn one at Indy is no joke. And I
Yeah.
think all these four guys, I do think they're going to qualify in the top five. Dude, I think they're all going to get punted out of the way. And I'm going to be like, this is America.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be good racing for sure, especially like having other top level guys in the sport in other sports coming to check out NASCAR. That's gonna be a lot of fun, I think, to watch. Um, and I'm with you. I certainly don't like anyone to come into the sport and thinking, "Hey, oh yeah, we're just gonna have it easy. It's NASCAR. I mean, how hard can it be?" Well, these guys they've made a career out of it and they train their whole lives for it. So it's like
Yeah.
you don't like to see somebody come in there and just whip up on them and be like, oh yeah, this is nothing. Um, I
I
mean,
will say I also heard because kind of like you said earlier, what if one of our guys went to their races? But guess
yeah,
what? Our guys wouldn't be allowed to race. Someone looked into this. A NASCAR driver or any other driver for that matter would not get licensed to do V8 supercars unless they do like some sort of like lower series races, get their points in their license like they all do in Europe and stuff, and get up to the top thing. So they
essentially,
would never let you do it.
essentially like we do in rally. Like if you want to get into the top of cars, you either need to go to school or you need to run well. So
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. But all right, Mark. Anything else you want to cover tonight?
no, we're racing tomorrow night. So Noah,
All right.
we've been doing quarter midget racing, NASCAR U Series. He has won two events this year out of four or five. I mean, he's doing really well. So a lot of second place finishes. I think we had a DNF and a fifth or fourth. Sorry, um, we lost a wheel one event. But no, everything's been good. He's been killing it here lately. So just a matter of one event at a time. We're looking to move him up kind of quickly, strictly because the more speed you learn how to do now when you're this young, the more you'll be able to carry. I think when he's like around maybe 11 or 12, we're going to start looking to get him into the micro sprint 600 cars, and they go 80 miles an
Way
hour.
faster. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're talking motorcycle engines in these cars. So, and we have tracks local, and obviously we'd like to continue growing him in the path. If he's doing well and he continues to do well, then obviously we want to nurture that and see where it goes. But that's all I have going on right now. I mean, obviously we know what's going on with our rally program.
Yep.
Um,
We
after
could
the
talk
crash,
about that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. With the crash.
we'll have to have an episode or something like about that, and definitely
For
bring
sure.
other people in for the conversation. That would be great. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all we have going on right now. I'm sure we'll be talking about rebuilding and obviously branding and stuff like that. So um, if if you want to have those conversations, you just let me know. I'm down.
We will. We will. All right, Mark. Well, thanks for stopping by. This is our first live on YouTube, so we'll see how this works out, and I look forward to do a few more of these with you throughout the rest of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, we could do this weekly as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds good to me, buddy.
All
All
right,
right,
buddy.
man. We'll see you later.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.